And softness is that being ready, that being movable without necessarily moving. It's the state of the trees before the breeze comes. It's the everything that makes everything possible. And it got me so excited when I first started learning about the concept of softness. Without softness, nothing is possible. You need to be movable in order to be moved emotionally, by your breath, by yourself, to be moved by another person, to move your body, to move your whole self as one, to allow your breath to move you.
Hi, Tara. I'm so happy to see you.
Oh, you're the best. My goodness. Any chance to hang out with you is always making my day.
Oh, same for me. I'm so excited. We just actually did another recording right before this. So we are spending all day together today.
I love
So
it.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited to do this episode with you and have this conversation. It's actually comes out of, a talk that we had during a walk and talk when I was talking on the phone with you, talking about just stuff in life. And we started talking about this idea of softness and how to embrace softness in a world that is really hard, but also about empowerment and all these different things. And so I thought, let's do this on the podcast. So thank you for offering to do it on the podcast. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, you're the best. And it really gives me so much practice to talk about it because it's such a challenging concept for everybody that I talk to about it. Not you, because you're like, yes, softness, but softness is a challenge, and it's been a good challenge for me to work with. So thank you for the chance.
No, I'm super excited about it. But I want to start before we go into softness, because I think this idea of softness comes from sort of a phrase that you're really well known for, and because you talk about it a lot, which is ease. You really emphasize the idea of ease in movement over getting into specific forms or poses, or being all strict about the traditional yoga poses and the alignment and this and that, and it's about ease. So how do you think ease empowers people in their practice of yoga or in their daily lives, taking yoga off the mat? How do you think that idea of ease sort of helps people?
Yeah, I think it always, well, I don't know about always, but when I first started learning about yoga, I had a really great sort of non-famous yoga teacher, kind of looked like Jack Tripper from Three's Company. And he was sitting at the front of the room, sort of happy for no reason and full of ease. And I thought, okay, why didn't anybody tell me this? I mean, that was my first, no. And it really was this radiating of ease. And I knew about that from dance. I knew, because that was my whole life up until that moment, was movement and dance. And a lot of people now that know that I have a dance background would say, oh, yoga is so opposite of dance, and yoga is so rigid and dance is so not rigid. I was like, well, we're people and we're all kind of rigid. So
tell me about it.
But with dance, obviously it's a very challenging art form, but you can't be rigid. It doesn't work if you're rigid, just like everything else. So you have to learn something through practice for a very long time and every day doing it, but you're doing it with ease. Otherwise, you can't do it. You will break your hips, your ankles, everything breaks, and it won't also look beautiful. And that's, the thing of the dance. You want it to look graceful, but you have to be graceful to look graceful. There's no one or the other. So that always sort of made sense to me. Although it's hard, it needs to be with ease. So I thought that first yoga class, yes, this is a practice that's just all about ease. And then I started taking every yoga that I could find and just learned, oh, people are neurotic. It's not that I had a great yoga teacher who was not as neurotic. So I learned that maybe this is the reason why my friends and family aren't practicing yoga now. So I wanted to really emulate that first teacher and bring ease into, not just into yoga, but into people's lives through this experience of this practice that I was falling in love with so much. So ease has become my main excitement through yoga. Even now I'll meet people that that know a little bit about me, and they say, "Oh, you're that yoga chick or whatever. Oh, it must be
Mhm.
so exhausting to lead so many yoga classes all the time, to travel and
Mhm.
do this." I said, "Well, I can't do it with rigidity and stress. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I can't do it. I physically wouldn't be able
Right.
to do it, especially as you get older. It has to be
Right.
even with more ease. So,
Right.
so ease is completely necessary to make anything happen. And we can kind of get away with it without the ease for a little bit of time. We can cheat
Mhm.
ourselves. We can kind of do things with more tension or more force, but eventually that's why burnout happens. Eventually
Right.
that's why breakdown and little injuries happen because of a huge lack of ease. So I'm all for,
Mhm.
being the ambassador for ease any day.
Yeah, what I'm hearing or what's coming up for me as you're saying that is that it's not only ease in the movements, but it's also ease in your mind. It's
Mm.
like how you're thinking about it also, right? How you're approaching things. That's what I'm sort of getting from what you're saying, that it's also a mindset, right?
Yeah, I've learned this sort of physically, and then now that these things get more and more popular, and science loves to explain them, which is
Mhm.
amazing. It it has to be a mindset first, and then your body kind of follows. Maybe it can go the other way around, but
Right.
that's always been the most interesting to me. It's sort of like, why aren't we moving with ease? We're doing
Right.
it because there's something going on here. We're not at ease in our mind,
Right.
and how do we get there? It's not just like,
Mhm.
okay, be at ease. It's sort of, do you feel safe? What's going on? Can you
Mhm.
focus something on how you're moving really well through whatever you're doing? And all of a sudden that feels nice and good and full of ease.
Right.
And maybe that makes you a little bit more safe to trust it the next time it comes up in a yoga movement or class or in a meeting or another
Mhm.
situation in life. It's sort of retraining your reaction to yourself sort of all the time.
Right. And it's also connected to being aware.
Mm. Yeah.
Because you start to notice that, right? Because you'll notice the rigidity versus the ease. Like, how are you moving? How are you
Mm.
looking at things if you are aware? Otherwise, you can just go through life being rigid and
Mm.
hurting yourself in all kinds of ways, right? Physically, metaphorically, emotionally, spiritually, the whole thing.
Mm.
But for me, what I think connects so much to me is that, in Ayurveda, it's about, or the way that I look at it and teach it and come at it, is that Ayurveda is about living consciously with
Mm.
awareness, right? In why am I doing the things I'm doing? Why am I not doing the things I'm not doing, right?
Mm.
Why am I making the choices I'm making? How does it make me feel? And so, what you're kind of saying also kind of aligns with that for me, which is probably why I love what you do and I connect with your work and with you so much, is that this idea of ease is only going to happen if you're aware of, are you at ease,
Mm.
feeling ease, or are you feeling rigidity, in hardness, like you have to be aware to even make a change or to adjust. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Something I always loved about really giving myself the freedom just to lead yoga and the way that made sense to me was saying things like, well, notice how you feel. And then my
Yeah.
friends who had never done yoga before, they were like, oh, okay. Oh, I feel that feels good or that feels not good or I can go further or not. And then my
Yeah.
friends that did yoga would be like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It doesn't matter how I feel. I'm just going to
Mhm.
stay here and wait for the, the 5 breaths to go by. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh my gosh, we've been sort of doing these practices as the destination instead of using these practices to notice what's going on with us. And I think that's just a human problem. There's nothing really wrong with
Yeah.
the practices. We've just said,
Right.
okay, this is great. Yoga's amazing. I'm just going to make sure I do it perfectly and then
Yeah.
I'll get the results. And I
Right.
think, I saw the problems with that, but I think a lot of people see the problems with that. I think that's why so many people felt unincluded from yoga because they thought, well, that doesn't
Hmm.
make sense, or I don't understand why that doesn't make sense. And
Right.
so many people now just are changing the way that they teach as well to sort of
Sure.
include more what's actually going on with you. Because once you notice in your yoga practice or whatever your practice is you notice how you're feeling in
Mhm.
that. And I know it sounds kind of corny, like what's
Mhm.
going on? How do you feel?
Mhm.
But when
Mhm.
you notice how you feel, all of a sudden you're aware of how you feel. And
Exactly.
it's humongous.
Yeah.
You're not just a person doing the yoga. I mean, I even
Right.
taught a kids yoga yesterday at Daisy's school, and I had them draw a little picture. It was a total risk. I'm like, this could go completely wrong. But I had them draw a little picture at the beginning of yoga. How do you feel right now? And then at the end of the yoga, how do you feel right now? And at the end, they were excited in the beginning. At the end, they felt kind of, there was more space like things and
Mm.
more intuition, and they wanted to kind of stay forever. They weren't nervous anymore about what's this
Mm.
yoga class going to be that my
So
parents
cool.
signed me up for.
That's
And
so
it was
cool.
really cool to see,
Yeah.
just in drawing, how do you feel? Because this is
Yeah.
about you. It's not about me teaching you these things to do. Yeah, we're going to be doing some things and learning how
Right.
to move your body and your breath body connection, but all of those things, all of those techniques are tools for you to notice what's going on with you. And that's the
Yeah.
most important, because you matter. And I think that's
Yeah.
what really scares people. Like, I matter.
Yeah.
How I feel
Right.
is whatever's going on is important. It's like, yeah,
Mhm.
that's the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, you should save those pictures, by the way. That's so cool.
I let them take them home. Maybe I should take
No.
pictures of them before they take them home
Yeah.
every day. So,
Yeah, because you know what? That's such a testament to the
mm,
before and after of doing a practice, right? Like,
yeah.
I think all of us, even as adults, could probably, connect those pictures if we looked at
Mm,
them side by side and saw the one that was, a little more excitement and
mhm,
energy or anxiety in the first one, and then that calmness in the second that you're
mm.
describing. Like, that really is like such a representation of what can happen in yoga if you can do it with ease, right? So
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
love
neat.
that. Super
Yeah,
cool.
one of the little kids, the first one was kind of just shapes that he draws all the time, like little animals and stuff. And then
Hmm.
the last one on the back was like purple and green, like swirls and circles. I'm like, ooh, there's
Yeah.
the inner space and all of these
Right.
things. And then a lot of them kind of drew more abstract things. And they're little kids, pre-K,
Yeah.
kindergarten, first grade. But
Right.
we all, what I love about you is you teach so many things, but then you keep saying, well, take all this stuff, but bring it into you, and you're the
Yeah.
wise one inside. So
Well,
it's
I
cool
don't
to
know
see all
about
the little wise ones.
I
You
don't know
do.
about that, but
You do.
okay, so we've talked about ease. So now I want to talk about this concept of softness, because you brought this up in our conversation on our walk and talk, and I was so intrigued by like what you were talking about with softness. So first, let's start with, what do you mean by softness? And then maybe you could talk about how is that related to ease, or like how did you get to softness from ease? How do those kind of go together? So what is softness first?
Yeah. So softness is that readiness, that practice that kind of becomes your whole lifestyle, that makes you connected to your whole self. And I think that kind of, for me, it was definitely like the next step of ease. Ease was
Mhm.
like my gateway
Yeah,
sort of into
sure.
understanding, well, we can do things with ease, but
Mhm.
softness is the thing that we're doing, whether it's on accident or on purpose, when the thing that we're doing to make us feel at ease. And softness is that being ready, that being movable without necessarily moving. It's the state of the trees before the breeze comes.
Mm.
It's the everything that makes everything possible. And it got me so excited when I first started learning about the concept of softness, because I'm like, that's it. That's the thing that I've been trying to do or doing or leading
Mhm.
for all this time, but I haven't sort of discovered it yet. And once I sort of like going in the woods and you find like the one
Yeah.
beautiful plant that you're like, this is the plant.
Yeah.
And for me, that's softness, because it's without softness, nothing is possible. You need to be
Mm.
movable in order to be moved emotionally, by your breath, by yourself, to be
Mm.
moved by another person, to move your body, to move your whole self as one, to allow your breath to move you. You need that softness. And what I love about softness is it's also an action, like a verb. It's like soften.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we can all do that too. It doesn't need to be, obviously you can do it in yoga, And that's the thing that I do and teach and share, but you can do that all the time. And that's really exciting to me.
Wow. So your description of the tree before the wind comes, that is like so beautiful. I totally, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, I get what she's saying.
Mm,
So because the tree can be moved, like it has that
mm,
quality of softness. And so then when the breeze comes, it can move. And that's what you're saying, is that
mm.
if you can be in that state, in that quality of softness, you can be moved just easily with
Easily.
ease,
Yeah.
right?
And that's what happens to all of us when we feel calm and
Yeah.
relaxed. When you're with a good friend, when I'm with you right now, it's easy for me
Mhm.
to be moved by you
Yeah.
and what you say, and I feel more connected. We all have these experiences with family, if we, in a good situation, or, some people say when they're watching a great movie that, gives them that feeling.
Mhm.
We all relate to this, but what's so exciting to me about softness is it's something that you can literally do all the time by bending yourself a little bit, giving yourself that moment of checking in. Am I swayable right now? Or am I
Mhm.
holding extra tension? Am I in a
Mhm.
comfortable body position that's going to allow everything to work? Or am I kind of, tweaked up a little bit? Am I going into a habit of sitting in
Mhm.
a way? Or is my
Mhm.
pinky holding extra tension? Where is it? It's sort of
Right.
getting curious about where you're off and not judging it, but saying, oh, of course, I can always get in a better body position. I can always
Right.
get more comfortable. And then it's like, okay, now the work is to find that perfect body
Right.
position for right now and say, okay, this is good. Now I can soften myself and
Yeah.
watch the breeze come, watch my breath move me. And
Right.
so much more becomes possible once you get into that state. And if you get out of it, you can get right back in the next time you are aware, which is, what you
Yeah.
teach so
Right.
much of, that just general
Yeah.
awareness of it's not happening right now. Oh, I can actually do something about that right now.
Right. It's beautiful, and I understand it. And here's where I'm gonna challenge you, right?
Mm,
Because there are so many societal norms, especially in Western society, around strength and power, and these words, heart, like, we there's all these words we use that are associated with being successful, productive, all of those things that feel so at odds
mm,
and actually opposite to softness.
mm,
And
mhm,
so how do we navigate that, especially as women, right?
mhm,
As those of us who, identify as women, how do we even do that? And actually probably even for men who want to have both, that softness in the world, it's actually in some ways probably even more challenging. But how do we even do that? Because we're in a society that glorifies hardness and strength
mhm.
and power, the exact opposite to what you're talking about.
Yeah, no pain, no gain is the A
Right.
plus, right? And
Right.
stress is the sign of success.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and softness is for Sundays,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Right.
And I look at that and it's really exciting to me again because I know that it's true. Without softness, you can't have strength. You can have a show of strength, but you
Yeah.
can't be truly powerful. If you are powerful without softness, you're going to break and you're going to burn out. And I think the one thing that, gets people more excited than, oh, I burn out, break, okay, fine, but I still want this. It's like, no, 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 you're not even reaching anywhere near your potential if you're going in that direction of,
Mm.
I'm strong, I'm going to push through this. I am, man or woman or whoever, just going, going, going. You got nothing on yourself. But if you
Yeah.
allow yourself to soften, move around a little bit, be moved by your breath, then yeah, you feel better, but people don't really, really want to feel better. They want to get more. And this is the way. It's so American. I was teaching this in Germany once, and I'm like, I can make the American jokes. I'm like, this is how you get more.
Uh-huh.
It's softness, people.
Yeah.
And and I really am excited about it because I just feel like it is the next, it's not going to be a trend because softness it's just the missing link between
Yeah.
all this information we have with
Yeah.
wellness and the things. And Ayurveda has it, and we're talking about it. And it's just going to get more and more and more practice. And once we practice it, we can stop talking about it so much and just do it more, and then see the benefits
Right.
from this practice of softness. Because,
Right.
every time I start talking more about it, sharing more about it, and the yoga about it, and we've been doing this in yoga for a while, but
Right.
it's all these magic, oh, my life is good now, this is happening.
Right.
And you can't say it's because of this or this, but
Right.
softness is the common denominator in a lot of this. And
Yeah.
I'm just excited for more and more people to get into it.
Yeah. So I want to tap into something you said, which I think is so key, which is you said that the secret is softness, and that actually, if you want to get ahead, if you want
Mhm.
to do more, be more, softness is like the magic. That's the key. And what I was thinking about is your image of the tree, right?
Mm.
Because if you have a tree that can't move, that's like petrified in a way, like just like standing there, stiff, and the wind comes, it's going
Mm.
to knock it down. Like a high enough wind will come and knock it down because it's not like malleable. It can't move, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, rigid will always be the first to break.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you have this for too long, and I know it's a self-protective thing, and I know we've been all trained this, but if you have this for too long, you will break, and you will be the first to break, and you will never know what your getting more
Yeah.
is, because your
Yeah.
getting more is missing because you're holding yourself back with this idea that you need to be rigid in order to get
Hmm.
more. If you
Yeah.
soften your body and your whole self, it's
Yeah.
not about losing muscle tone or
Right.
becoming weak. It's about being more capable of all of the things that you're already doing. So it works in your weightlifting if you're a weightlifter. If you use
Yeah.
softness,
Right.
it's gonna work out better for you. It works in
Yeah.
your yoga, it works in your business. And it's so fun to teach it to people that do completely different things than I do.
Yeah.
And then they go back and they're like, my meetings are going better. you know,
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
things happen.
Right.
And it's not a biohack, it's not a gimmick. It's something
Yeah.
you can literally do in every moment to connect better with yourself and to connect better with what's happening around you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the trees, they've been trying to teach us this for a while,
I
I
know,
think.
right? We just have to look to nature, which is Ayurveda, right? Right there.
Yeah.
We're both talking about traditions that are sister sciences. So I also want to ask you a question before we move on to, softness in a yoga practice, like specifically, but I want to go back to what you said that like, when you teach this to people who are doing other things and there's like, my meetings are going better, my life is going better. Like, how are they applying softness to their lives? Let's get away from like maybe even how you're moving, but how are they applying it to other things that they're doing? I'm really curious. Like, what have you heard from people?
Yeah. So, so many people listening probably have a job or on
Yeah.
Zooms, things like that, or just in a group meeting. But, and we've all had experience with those group meetings going well for us and not going well.
Hmm.
And applying softness in that setting can be something that the group doesn't know about, that you're just doing yourself. You're finding
Yeah.
a comfortable body position, swaying a little bit, connecting with yourself. And it opens you up to being able to listen better, and we can all
Mhm.
improve in listening better. It's sort of, there's no
Yeah.
end point, like I'm already a good listener. No,
Yeah.
we're not, none of us are.
Yeah. Right.
So we listen better,
Yeah.
and we're able to communicate our thoughts better. People are more open to us because we're more connected to ourselves. We feel better to be around,
Hmm.
and it just really works in that situation. And I have this experience all the time making dinner. There's only so much time, there's activities going on.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there chopping the vegetables rushed and hurried, I'm much more likely to cut myself or
Yeah.
burn myself in the oven. We've all
Yeah.
had those experiences. But
Yeah.
when I apply softness, I'm going to get in a better body position. I have the same amount of time to do the thing. It's not
Yeah.
about taking time out to do your self-care, which is
Right.
fine if you can,
Yeah. Yeah.
but right in the moment with the
Yeah. Right.
vegetables,
Right.
doing the thing,
Hmm.
seeing if I'm swayable and still doing the thing, you end up, myself and everybody I talk to, you get more done with less time.
Yeah.
You become more efficient, more, connected, more capable, and more happens. And you also have your ability to think clearly. We all
Yeah.
relate to this frazzled mindset because it's so easy to do. And then, yeah, of course, you cut your finger, you burn yourself, and you're stressed, and the kids are screaming, and the partner's screaming, and the TV's on, and the
Mm-hmm.
social media is there.
Mm-hmm.
But we can change all of that by moving ourselves a little bit better in the kitchen, in the
Mm-hmm.
meeting, in
Mm-hmm.
the anything, and just to see what happens. People
Right.
will literally come up to you and say, "What are you doing? What's your
Right.
skincare routine?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
No, they will.
happening?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's coming up for me also as you're saying that is because you keep saying connection with
Mm,
softness, that it allows you to connect with yourself. It allows you to connect with others. And it's so interesting because I actually was just doing my line edits for my book that's coming out at
mm,
the end of the year. I was doing this last night. I was reading the last chapter, and it's actually, I've written about connection.
wow.
And it's specifically about connection to others, connection to the world around you, connection to self, connection to the divine.
Mm,
And what you're saying is so in line with what I was saying there
mm,
is that when you, at least what I'm hearing from you is that this softness, this mindset, this approach to life of being in softness allows you to connect in a different way with yourself, with others, with the world, with the divine, whatever you want to call it. And everything just kind of goes better.
yeah. It's amazing. There's an easy example for my life right now is on Fridays at Daisy's school, they invite the parents, they have this morning meeting thing. And the
Mhm.
first few months of going into that, I was really having to work hard on my softness practice. So I felt comfortable. I was really nervous, new
Mhm.
schools, Daisy's going to be happy, new parents, whatever.
Mhm.
And I really focused on it every meeting. And I did make a new friend or I met a new parent, but I knew it was because I was doing the softness thing because a lot of parents don't
Yeah.
want to make friends. Or maybe they do, but they're, I'm busy, busy, busy. I'm going to be over here.
Yeah.
But I've connected with those parents too, and they're wonderful people. Fast forward to, almost the end of the school year. Now I go into those morning meetings and I feel like I almost work at the school. I'm happy
Yeah.
to be there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my personality too,
Sure.
but it's because I'm doing the softness thing. And today they did this thing in a circle, this hand squeeze, activity. And a couple of the boys in Daisy's class were being really rowdy together. And the teacher kind of looked at me and she's like, I don't know what to do. And I was like, is it okay if I join the circle? So I joined the circle between them two and like got down on my knees and like held the hands. And I'm like, is it okay if I'm here? Asking them. And they thought it was really cool and weird that,
Yeah.
Daisy's mom joined the
Yeah.
circle. But it was better for me too, because I didn't have to feel nervous that they were acting, inappropriately. And, the teacher was upset. But I just said, I can do something about this and it'll make me
Mhm.
feel better. And maybe it'll make them feel better. And we
Yeah.
ended up having a great time. It's just a little moment. It's not like anybody looked at that moment and said, oh, Tara's doing this big thing. But for me, it was
Right.
nice to know that my softness was affecting
Other
my
people.
experience and my experience with the
Yeah.
other people in that room,
Yeah.
whether, it doesn't need to be, a big deal, but all of those little moments in our lives feel something for us. We have those moments where we feel good at the grocery store because somebody opened the door for us. And we
Yeah.
can really create those literally all of the time. And life starts to feel really
Yeah.
miraculous,
And beautiful and
beautiful. Yeah.
joyful. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing when you think about it that way. I'm having so many ahas that I didn't have on our walk a few days ago when we started talking about this. So thank you for that. Yeah, this idea of softness as the way that you can connect with
Mhm.
everything. It's like you're inviting a space for that to happen
Mm,
by becoming soft, by having softness. And I guess, that's the other thing is like, how do you say the word without like all the negative connotations that are, with softness? Like you said, Sundays
mhm.
are for softness or, stop being so soft or whatever. And it's always like looked at as this negative, weak sort of thing. And you're actually helping me see that it is exactly the opposite. It's actually very powerful.
It's very powerful. I think it's worth sticking to the word that it is and not trying
Mm.
to change it. I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
when I first started talking about softness years ago. And again, it was funny because we're in Europe a lot, and it was in Germany. And there was a woman, and people were coming back from a training, and they were kind of reporting about how it was going.
Mm-hmm.
And this one woman said to me, "Do you have a different word for softness? Because in German, it means something very bad." And I said, "Well, in English, it also means something very bad.
Yeah.
Not like a bad, like a
Yeah. Yeah.
foul
Yeah.
word or something, but
But it's
just it means,
negative. Yeah.
yeah." The woman said it means to melt like butter. And I said, "Well, you don't need to tell people to soften. It's a
Mm.
verb, but you can, bend and move, and there's so many ways to go about it. But it's sort of reframing our minds about this thing that's amazing. It's sort of like maybe 15 years ago, the word wellness really didn't exist, and people might have thought that was, woo woo or
Mm-hmm.
strange or something
Right.
back then. But I really do think the feeling about the word will change, because it's just what it is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it says this in Ayurveda and Tai Chi and Shiatsu, and not
Right.
so much the yoga that I've read and learned, but I think it's in there too somewhere.
It
But
is. It is.
softness is necessary
Yes.
for anything to happen, and it's just the right word. I wouldn't want to kind of, you know, try to change it
Yeah.
it feels like it would make it less powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with you. I mean, that's what I'm saying is that I think it's redefining,
Mm-hmm.
how we look at that word and seeing that it is so incredibly powerful. It's quite the opposite of what many of us have been sort of told or
Yeah.
sold
Yeah.
about the word or about what that means, And to your point, I think this idea of softness, has been in so many of the Eastern
Mm.
healing traditions, Eastern wisdom traditions, like even in Ayurveda, right? We have the 20 qualities. There's
Mm.
10 pairs of opposites, and soft is one of them, soft and
Mm.
hard.
Mm.
And again, if you remember in Ayurveda, nothing is good or bad.
Mhm.
It's not like one's better than the other. They're just
Mhm.
opposites, and you use them to balance yourself. Sometimes you need to
Mm.
add more soft, sometimes you need to add
Mm.
more hard, depending on
Mhm.
what's going on with you, what time of the year it is, what time of life it is, right? And so soft in Ayurveda or in India and South Asia doesn't have a negative or a weak connotation to it, which I'm assuming, I don't know, but I'm going to ask you, is that true of like in Tai Chi and Qigong and, sort of the traditions that I know a lot of Strala of your yoga sort of style and practice and teaching has a huge emphasis and like
Mm.
incorporates those wisdom traditions. So is soft something that you kind of learned from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something I've been, chasing or searching for
Mm.
so long.
Hmm.
But it was really Mike telling me, "Yeah, this is Tai Chi, Tara." I'm like, "Well, I gotta learn Tai Chi then." And then Sam, our Shiatsu teacher,
Yeah.
would always say everything that you're sort of trying to do and doing pretty well. He would say, "Oh, you're doing a good job on that. That's that's shiatsu, that's softness." And I would say, "Okay, let me go dive into this more." And
Hmm.
specifically with Tai Chi and the connection, it doesn't work. And this is what's so, it can be funny in so many ways, because if you just kind of push buttons in the meridians, it doesn't work. It's like the meridian is the spot,
Yeah.
but you can't just mechanically push it with a robot and have something to happen. You
Right.
have to make a connection with yourself, be at ease, be soft, and then make that connection either with your own, point or your own meridian, or with another person.
Right.
It literally doesn't work. So you can't sort of perform
Hmm.
softness. And then with Tai Chi too, I mean, I think Mike always yells at me. He's like, "Stop overusing the word ninja." But I'm like, but people like me relate to that. Like you see a
Yeah.
ninja and you're like, "Oh yeah, the ninja's cool," like Kung Fu
Yeah.
Panda.
Right.
So Kung Fu Panda and the ninjas, all the people, doing all of these really intense martial arts, they're not overworking at all. And I think
Yeah.
that's so much of softness.
Right.
They're doing these what looks like, unattainable things, but
Right.
they're not using one bit of extra effort. They're doing them
Right.
with softness.
Yep.
And we, as outsiders, look at something like that and say, "Oh, that looks so tough, that looks so
Right.
strong."
Right.
but the experience of the ninja doing it, or the person, I shouldn't say that,
Right.
like
Right.
it's full of softness and ease.
Right.
So it's just a perception issue, I
Yes.
think, is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very much a Western perception, because I don't
Hmm.
think that the Eastern perception is that it's hard and,
Hmm.
like what we think of a ninja. It's actually,
Hmm.
they know the power is coming from the softness, from the
Yeah.
ease, from the sort of ability to be moved, right, by
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
energy and move with it. And yeah, there's just a different understanding, which I think is so, so key, and is just so, it's a bigger sort of a part of a bigger discussion about, the difference between um, West East when it comes to health, medicine, wellness, right? The perspectives that we have, and why I love sort of how the work that I'm trying to do, which is to bring it together, because there's a balance between both of them. They can both help us a lot. But I'm really intrigued by this idea of softness. I'm going to have to think about it a lot more. But let me ask you this, how do you see when you're teaching this, how do you see softness as a benefit for not necessarily the physical? Because I think you've talked about that,
Hmm.
but really mental and emotional health. What have you seen, happen with students or even with yourself?
Yeah, that's the main thing for me. I sort of see, the movements that you do and all of that. It's wonderful. It's great. It's going to even out your body,
Hmm.
do for it what you need to do it, but you're in your body, So I feel like that's
Right.
that's really the main thing. And hopefully I'm getting better at teaching it in a way where I don't feel like I have to. I say the word soften sometimes, but it's more of an action, like, soften your elbows, whatever. It
Right.
doesn't come across like, and now we're going to soften. Like, I don't want to scare people with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
it's just another word for bend, really, in the movements.
Hmm.
But if I'm able to do it from the moment I walk into the yoga studio or turn on the online class to the end, and hopefully keep doing it in my life, then I'm able to share it in that way. So it's
Hmm.
really this way of relating to yourself. It's really a lifestyle of how you connect with yourself first. And
Hmm.
I've seen a huge shift in myself, even in the last 5 years, with when real almost life stressful things happen, less freakouts have happened for me. And it's not that it's not that the hard things don't happen. And
Sure.
that podcast that Glennon Doyle has, that we can do hard things. I want to call her up and be like, with softness. So we can do hard things, but we don't have to
Yeah.
hurt ourselves in the
Yeah.
process and feel like
Right.
garbage. We all
Hmm.
are doing such hard things, but we
Right.
can do them with softness and feel good in the process.
Right.
And I feel like we're all kind of in this tipping point of, we need it, otherwise we can't do hard things anymore. We're going to
Hmm.
collectively,
Yeah.
burn out again. And I've really seen
Right.
a shift in my life, just looking at circumstances or things in my family and things that have happened, and saying, well, maybe when I first got into yoga and these things happened, I don't think I would have been as prepared as now. And it's not just, oh, I've been doing yoga more. It's, I've been doing yoga with softness for a longer
Hmm.
period of time. So it's sort
Hmm.
of protected me from these hard things. And I haven't had, I've been able to be in them and be like, oh, that's interesting that just
Hmm.
happened.
Hmm.
Or, with my dad in the hospital, I can now sit with him and arrange myself and connect with him to maybe help him feel better with his tremors, and make
Hmm.
good relationships with the nurses and doctors coming in and ask them how
Hmm.
they're doing, what's going on. And
Right.
I'm thinking,
Right.
and I got so much feedback just from the medical professionals saying, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
most people
Right.
would be freaking out right now.
Sure. Sure.
And yeah, these are, everybody's going to go through, haven't been through, like, family members in the hospital and illnesses and death and dying and all this stuff. But it really, you can do it with a panic, or you can do it with softness. And I just feel so grateful that I had softness a little bit before
Hmm.
life started to get really hard. And now I'm like, I
Hmm.
can do it. I can do these hard things with
Hmm.
ease. And even, it
Hmm.
sounds kind of strange, but with joy,
Yeah.
and make connections. And I had a lot of nurses email me after my dad passed and say, it was just really neat to see you kind of walk around and take care of your mom and take care of your dad and even ask us how we were doing and all of
Mm-hmm.
those things. And I didn't think, oh, I'm doing these things to make the nurses happy. I'm doing them, first of all, for myself, so I
Sure.
don't panic, but
Mm-hmm.
then also, for the people, for my dad and for my mom. But it does really radiate out when you do these things. And we all know that we want to be calm and at ease
Mm-hmm.
all the time because we know that our actions affect others. But
Right.
for me, I've really kind of locked onto this. Like, I need to be soft all the time because I don't want to walk around kind of littering the world with my own
Mm-hmm.
emotional and physical garbage. I want to walk
Mm-hmm.
around and make the world a better place just by
Mm-hmm.
being in it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really become really clear to me with softness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's making me think about actually what I have learned in the past year, which is, and I've said this quite a few times on this podcast, is that Ayurveda is protective. That's like a
Mm,
very clear message that's come to me. And more than preventative, it is protective. It protects you every day.
mm,
And what I realized is that I was able to, bounce back from every treatment, every side effect, every symptom last year that I had during my cancer healing journey a lot better.
mm,
And what I'm realizing right now as you're talking is that I was practicing softness. And that
yeah.
is part of what I learned in Ayurveda. I didn't
Mhm,
call it softness. I think maybe I was calling it more like balance a little bit,
mhm,
like using the opposite qualities or something. Not really even sure. I'm thinking about this as I'm talking to you right
mhm,
now. But the image that came to me when you were just sharing about your father in the hospital and how you were practicing softness, the image that came to me was when I was sitting in the chemotherapy chair and I would allow myself to just chill out, to
mm,
get soft, to soften, to feel that softness,
mm,
right? And just receive and actually almost like transmute that I was putting these
mm,
chemicals into my body that I was really having a hard time with and I knew was going to make me very sick the next 8 days, but I was able to practice softness in that moment when I was receiving the
mm,
chemotherapy. And it changed my experience in the moment
mm,
and also after. And I
mm,
think it's this combination, and I'm not even really sure. I'm going to have to think about this more. Maybe we'll have to talk about it again. But there's something there about, it being a practice that I
mm,
probably was already doing within my Ayurvedic practice, like in the way that I, am approaching the world and I didn't even realize it.
mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I remember you sharing that with me about kind of just imagining golden light going
Yeah.
through you. And it makes perfect sense for you. But I could imagine feeling sorry for the other people maybe in that hospital at the same time that didn't have that. So
Right.
they're getting that, treatment,
Yep.
but also panicked about it at the same
Yeah.
time. And,
Yep.
we don't have a lot of science around that yet,
Right.
but because the treatment's supposed to work and it still will do the things. But if you're tense and rigid and panicked,
Mhm.
there's got to be, it's not safe to say that yet. Oh, it's not going to
Right.
work as well.
Sure.
But what you're saying with the softness and the ease and the chilling out, you had a really wonderful outcome that is probably more predictably good
Mhm.
than being panicked.
Yeah, and I also experienced it different. Like, so
Mm,
like forget about the outcome even. You know, again to your point
mm,
earlier that, we're always so worried about the destination with the yoga pose.
yeah.
I really had to release, and I think this is true for anyone going through something, a difficult diagnosis, a chronic illness. If you are always focused on the destination,
Mm,
it's going to be really tough. It's really
mm,
stressful. It's really anxiety producing.
mm,
But if you can stay in the process, right? And sort of
mm,
allow yourself to just be here right now and go one step at a time,
mm,
I think and be in that softness, quite
mm,
literally what you're saying. I think it transforms your experience quite literally.
mm.
And that makes all the difference for sure in the outcome.
Mm.
Like that for sure we know is that if you can, get yourself into a place that is not a sympathetic, high ratchet, like high stress space, you are actually going to do much better as far as your body healing,
Mhm.
you being able to receive any kind of therapy that you're getting much better. Everything works better. We know that.
Mm.
So there is some science to it,
Yeah.
not exactly extrapolated to softness, but
Mhm.
we'll get there.
Yeah,
I'm
we'll get
making some
there.
connections as we're
We're gonna
talking.
make it cool first.
Yeah, exactly.
Once it's
And so
cool, yeah.
yeah. But, so let's talk about this because I know that,
Mm.
we've been talking a little bit that how do we empower ourselves using softness? I mean, we've
Mm.
talked about, kind of changing the definition and coming at it from a different perspective, but like,
Mm.
how can it really help us feel more empowered and help us transform even in all of our life, not just in yoga, but in life in general?
I think something that's cool for an experiment for people, and it's been a great experiment for myself, is, a lot of people talk to me, they say, okay, softness, that's great. Yoga, cool. It's
Mhm.
all easy anyway. And
Yeah.
I say, well, try a more challenging sequence for your yoga and see how far you can go with softness. And it's not about doing a movement that's dangerous or stressful by nature, but it's, can you do something that's closer to your comfort zone being there? Like, how much can you expand your comfort zone without
Mhm.
panicking? And I think that's a really good
Mm.
sort of softness test in a way. And I've kind of upped my yoga routine a bit. And like you, I love my gentle yoga. And
Yeah.
it's all
Love
with
it.
softness. It's not
Yeah.
like,
Sure.
I'm not a fan of like compartmentalizing, like hard on Tuesdays and this on this. But
Yeah.
if I'm going to do a more challenging yoga routine, it's not changing the moves. It's not doing something that would cause me joint pain or something. Maybe it's holding a plank pose for as long as I can. And then I put my knees down when I need to. And it's sort of saying, well, how long can I hold this without a panic? And what can I
Mm.
do while I'm holding this to not panic? And that's always being a bit more movable. So a little bend in my joints. Can I sway here? A little shift side to side
Mhm.
and forward and back. And then all of a
Mhm.
sudden I can stay in this position that's actually building this empowered mental, emotional, and physical feeling
Right.
with softness. And I love this kind of test. And
Yeah.
it's funny because I figured out this test a long time ago when I first started leading yoga in New York to sort of busy business types, and they would all
Mhm.
want their workout, and
Right.
it would be so annoying to me until I figured out that I could hold a plank pose longer than all these really muscly guys and women. And I
Yeah.
would say, okay, let's do this plank pose. And I would say, let's see who can stay here the longest. And I would do
Uh-huh.
my softness trick, but with ease. I wasn't really thinking
Yeah.
about softness so
Uh-huh.
much, but a few of the things. And they would start 10, 30 seconds, 1 minute in doing it, but start to like, oh, I'm going to just put all
Yeah.
my effort into this. And then the sweat would start dripping.
Right.
And I'm over there like, little
Hanging
Tara
out.
from Illinois, like just chilling it.
Hanging
What do
out,
I have to
chilling out.
lose?
Yeah.
And it's not like I can stay for 10 minutes at a plank pose, but I can
Right.
outlast pretty much any
Mhm.
anybody that I go to a little contest with who's not employing softness. Now, if I can teach these people how to soften, they're going to be able to stay much longer because their bodies are much stronger than me.
Right.
But I could
Right.
stay so much longer with that. And I think those challenging tips, we living in the Berkshires now. So walking up a mountain, that's
Yeah.
challenging for me, just going
Yeah.
for a walk up a hill. But I
Yeah.
can do that with softness and I
Yep.
can go so much further than if I was like, oh, when's this over? Or, I'm doing this for my health, kind of a thing.
Mhm.
I can take a CrossFit class with a friend and be smiling the whole time and be doing really well and, finish and surprise everybody. Oh, I didn't think you could do that. I'm like, yeah, of
Yeah.
course I can. But I'm not grunting and furrowing my
Right.
brow and freaking
Right.
out
Right.
like some of the culture of maybe the people in the class are doing. I'm doing it
Right.
like we did wall balls. I did wall ball to this. And instead of throwing the ball down and kind of huffing to the next station, I would
Yeah.
move it down and move from my middle to the next station. I'd be on the rowing machine 10 seconds before everybody else. And they're all
Right.
way stronger than me, but I
Right.
can I can ninja my way with softness. So
Yeah.
whatever your hard thing is, give it a test with softness and see how much more you can do because it's really
Yeah.
incredible to me.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that it's even beyond the physical stuff.
Yeah.
Like, just if you, have this mindset of softness,
Hmm.
how many more things can you do that you thought you couldn't do? And it's not
Yeah.
about being more productive and getting
Yeah.
more shit off your to-do list or anything like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about how can you stretch yourself to
Hmm.
a place where you thought you wouldn't be able to get to, whether it means like understanding something that you're reading better, or
Hmm.
maybe writing, a couple more pages of
Hmm.
something that you have been working on, or, you know, getting a little further in some organization project that
Hmm.
you're,
Hmm.
wanted to do, like things that you want to do, not necessarily that you have to do. Cooking, making a recipe that you thought, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to do half of those things, or whatever it is. Like, I feel like you could apply this to so many things in your life and just surprise yourself of
Yeah.
like what you're saying, how much more you can do.
Yeah, if you start doing it, it sort of just starts to trickle in all the places. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you can start it in the kitchen by bending yourself a little bit and chop the veggies like that. You can start it in your yoga practice, or you can
Mhm.
start it in your hike up a hill, but you'll start to see yourself doing these things in all the situations. And then, yeah, wherever you were sort of lacking before, I mean,
Yeah.
when my schedule gets busy, the sort of before softness Tara version, I can imagine
Right.
being frustrated, not getting as much done, staying up late, these kinds of things. And now I
Mhm.
get everything done that I need to get done. Maybe I'm even not doing some of the things that I don't need to do. Maybe those aren't even
Right.
making it to my plate
Right.
now.
Yeah.
And then when I'm tired, I can rest. I can go to bed. And I think that's huge too, to be able
Yes.
to, for your body and your mind to be in sync. It's time to rest now. And you've taught me
Yes.
so much of that with Ayurveda, being like, all right, day's over. I've done the thing.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's so much of what we can learn from this application of softness too. It just has this way of bringing harmony to wherever it
Yeah.
was lacking in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I just have one more question because I really want to come back to this connection piece. And so I'm thinking about, community and environment. Like, how do you think that affects softness, or like having a lifestyle or a mindset around softness? What have you seen?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the luckiest person in the world. Like I have my dream life. I've always wanted to meet people different from myself all around the world. And
Mhm.
with the yoga, with Strala, and I think this is literally because of softness, because there's lots of nice yoga communities that, I'd be happy to be a part of. I don't need to lead everything. But
Mhm.
this community that sort of come together, that a little blips around the world. Oh, softness. It's kind of interesting, and to see the ripple effect of
Yeah.
people working together, or just people in a room doing this. And then,
Mhm.
we've rented out studios to have trainings in. Then the front desk would say, your group is really nice. What's going on? Or even
Yeah.
people walking by and looking in the window saying, that looks nice. Is that a class I can come to tomorrow?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And we've gotten feedback from local cafes. The people in your group come in and they don't
Yeah.
leave a mess. Usually people leave this huge mess. And I don't
Right.
give a talk like, okay, don't leave a mess when you go
Yeah.
pick up your yoga. We don't have to have these,
Right. Right.
rules and regulations. I mean, it doesn't have to be, don't talk to people in this way, talk to people this way. These things are kind of, and it sounds strange, but understood because we're practicing taking care of ourselves and listening to ourselves and noticing how we feel, and
Mhm.
softness. And then when you do that in a group, you're kind of bounced around by everybody else doing it. So it has this way of bringing out the best in you. I know it sounds so corny, but it
No,
feels so
no.
good to be around other
Yeah.
people also doing this. Then you can
Yeah.
go back into your life where you feel like, oh, maybe I'm the only one practicing softness. And it's
Right.
okay. You don't feel
Right.
a
Right.
burden. It's not like, oh,
Right.
why isn't everybody else happy, or
Mhm.
taking care of themselves? You feel like, oh, I have some energy now. I can go into this meeting. I'm the only one doing softness, but I'm going to get all these people to do it just by me doing it. And
Right.
then we're going to keep going from there. So,
Yeah, yeah, and so it's like the community that you've built that's all practicing this with you also fuels you, sort of like you bank up that fuel and then you go back into
yeah.
your life and you're able to spread it more, to everybody else. And I think that's very true. I mean, I feel that with you. Honestly, I love I've told you this so many times that I will do any collaboration, like anything you want to do. If you want me to talk to your community or do a class, anything, I will always do it because I feel that way. I feel that connection. I feel that softness. And I'm using this word now because now I understand what you mean by it, really understand it. Like I feel that from you and the community that you've created. And who doesn't want to be around that? Like, it's joyful. It's inspiring. It feels good. Yeah. All the things. So
I think it's really neat to share with people that when you start doing it, the people around you feel better, which is good for you. like no
yeah.
one wants to be
Yeah.
at the family reunion
Yep.
with
Yep.
everybody being stressed out. But if you can be the one person at the family reunion that's taking care of themselves, you're going to have a better time at the family reunion. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you're going to fix everybody's
Yeah.
wacky life, but
Yeah.
it's going to be good for you. So I think it
Yeah.
really takes people out of this mode of, oh, I have to fix
Mm-hmm.
everybody. You don't have to fix
Mm-hmm.
anybody. Just focus
Right.
on yourself,
Right.
and that anything and everything good will happen because you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of the rewiring around selfish too. It's sort of, we've been so deprogrammed to listen to ourselves. That's been told to so many of us that that's
Mm-hmm.
a negative thing, or that's against being a good person even. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really held us back from really just taking good care and connecting with ourselves so we can make those better connections with
Mm-hmm.
people around us.
Yeah. That feels like a good place to end our conversation because, like, mic drop. That was beautiful. I'm so inspired by this talk. I'm going to be thinking about this for a couple of days, couple of weeks. And yeah, thank you. This has been really, really enlightening. And just, I love this frame and this perspective. And I'm going to really, really lean into it. So thank you, Tara.
Oh,
I
you're the
really
best. No,
appreciate it.
I'm excited just to hang out with you and do this all together, really. So
Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.